Welcome back, and we're on to the 14th of September, so let's go. Okay, question 1. Question 1 is a calculate the area question. Now, when you get because you learn a couple of ways of calculating the area of triangles, it's a good idea to always remember the basics as if you're back in year 7 or similar. So it's a right angle triangle, so therefore the area of my triangle is going to be half height times base. You don't need to use the sine rule or similar to calculate the other side and do half ABC sine C or calculate angles. You've got a perpendicular, so therefore it's just half height times base. So it's going to be a half times the height, which is 10 times the base. Now, this is where the question gets clever. I don't actually know what the base is, do I? So I'm now using the other thing that I know is Pythagoras, which tells me that this here is going to be 14 squared minus 10 squared square rooted, which is going to be 196 minus 100 square rooted, which is going to be approximately 9.798. So that's slightly harder than it felt like originally. So therefore it's going to be half times 10 times 9.798. Put all that in my calculator and I get 48.99 centimeters squared. Now it doesn't give me an accuracy to round to. I have to say 49 would be fine, but as long as I can see calculation and you're doing a sensible number, so 2, 3, 4, 6 sig fig, that is okay. Next question. Okay, so now we've got to find the circumference of the circle. What is the circumference of the circle? Well, the formula for the circumference of the circle is 2 times pi times the radius, or you might have also learned pi d. So looking at the diagram, do I have my diameter? Well, I don't. But what I do have is I know, because this here goes to the center, I know that this is a right angle triangle. I also know that because PS is a chord and Q and R both come off the same chord, I know this here is also 35 degrees. So I've got a triangle. I'm going to read all the triangle down here. So I've got a triangle where I know that this is 7, this is a right angle, and this is 35 degrees. So in other words, the thing that I want, which is P to R, is going to be my diameter. I'm going to do that by using some good old-fashioned trigonometry. Now, I've got an opposite. I want a hypotenuse, so that's sine. So therefore, sine of 35 is equal to the opposite 7 divided by the hypotenuse, which is PR, which means that PR is going to be 7 divided by sine 35, which is approximately 12.206. And now I've got my diameter. However, again, remember the question wants the circumference. Always go back and read the question, check you've got what you need. So my circumference is going to be 2 times d, so I'm using pi d rather than working out the radius and just doubling it again. So pi times d, which is 12.206, which is going to give me 38.3 centimeters. And that is that question done. Next question. All right, now this is one of those questions that I like to tick it off as I go to make sure I've covered everything. So firstly, notably, it tells me there's 60 students overall, and that probably means I'm going to need that to work out one of the missing numbers. So the first thing it tells me is 16 students study biology and chemistry. So the temptation is to put 16 here, but I already have 7 in the middle. So therefore it's not 16, but 16 minus 7, which is 9. I'm going to write a 9 here, and then I tick that off to say that I've used it. 22 students study physics. Well, physics is basically all the students in this circle here. Already in that circle, I have 8 plus 7, which is 15, plus 5, which is 20. So therefore, I know the remaining 2 students must go over here. It's all about understanding that inside the overall circle are all the students I care about, which in this case is the 22 that do physics. 35 students study chemistry. So again, I'm going to need this number here. Now I'm going to work out the numbers already. So 9 plus 7 is 16, plus 5 is going to give me 21. 21 plus what is 35? It's going to be 14 students that study chemistry. And then it tells me here, and the next step, that 4 students do not study any of these 3. So it's 4 on the outside. And then to find out this one here, I need to add up all the numbers I've got so far and do 60 minus that number. So get my calculator out, and it's going to be, and you'll hear me do it now, it's going to be 60 minus 4 minus 2 minus 7 minus 5 minus 9 minus 14, which is going to give me 11 students that study biology. Let's So that 11 students goes there, and I've completed my diagram. Now, although it should of course work, it is always worth adding it up again. Always with these questions, there's a little probability question afterwards. So this one's a conditional question because it says of the students who study biology. So the students who study biology are these students here, which is 11 plus 9, which is 20, plus 2, 22, plus 7, 29. So there's 29 students that study biology. What percentage study chemistry but not physics? So I want them to study chemistry, so I want these ones here. But I don't want them to study physics, so I just want these ones here, which is this 9 number here. So therefore the answer to this one is going to be 9 over 29. Okay, final question for today. So it looks like a straight line graphs question with some ratio involved. So again, pause the video, have a go at this one. Okay, so how do we do? So ABC is a straight line. Now my tip for this one is don't spend ages trying to draw a super nice diagram with the coordinates and everything in the right place. All you need to know that A is 1 to minus 3, C is 13 to 6, so I'm just going to write C as 13 to 6, and B is somewhere in the middle, I presume. And then it tells me that A to B, B to C is 2 to 1. So A to B is 2 lots and B to C is 1 lot. So what might be helpful is if I knew what A to C was. Now I'm going to use vectors here, which a lot of people don't really like, but they do work really well. So A to C goes from 1 to 13, which is 12, and from minus 3 to 6, which goes up 9. So again, if you weren't quite sure where that came from, pause the video. What I'm basically doing is working out the x coordinate to get from A to C and the y coordinate to get from A to C. And then I want to split that into threes. So a third of this, so a third of A to C, so I'm going to write a third of A to C is equal to 4, 3. And the reason that's helpful is because I know A to B is 2 lots of that, which is 8, 6. And B to C is 1 lot of that, which is 4, 3. And then it says find the coordinates of B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coordinates of A, which is 1 minus 3. And then I'm going to add on the coordinates of AB, which is 8, 6. And that's going to give me a final answer of 8 plus 1, which is 9, minus 3 plus 6, which is 3. And that's my final answer. But it's not quite, because these are vectors and I want a coordinate. And actually what's called position vectors. And if you do A-level, you'll learn about position vectors. So the answer is actually in coordinate terms is going to be 9, 3. And that's today done. Well done if you got all of those. As ever, like, subscribe, anything in the comments, let me know. I will come back to you. Thanks all.